What if I told you that changing the law didn't necessarily change the system? Most of us were taught that the Civil War ended, slavery was abolished, and America moved forward. All facts. This part is true. But as we know, our history hasn't been as simple. So today we're exploring what happened after emancipation and why freedom written into law didn't always translate into freedom in everyday life. But before I get into today's episode, I want to ask you this question. How connected are you to Black history beyond what you learned in school? That's the question that led me to create the Historical Awareness Profile, a free assessment that measures 6 dimensions of historical awareness: historical exposure, cultural connection, curiosity, critical perspective, historical engagement, and legacy awareness. And by taking the Historical Awareness Profile, you'll receive a personalized profile along with a free copy of Malcolm X Through the Crown Framework, a collection of reflection cards designed to help you apply lessons from Malcolm X's life to your own journey of enlightenment. You can take the assessment today by visiting historiansconnect.scoreapp.com or by simply clicking the link in the episode description. By the way, if this is your first time listening to Blackwash History, welcome. I'm Brittany Wilkins. Now, let's get into today's show. Earlier in the season 3, episode 11, The System Beneath the System. Why equality on paper isn't enough. I left you with one question. If the rules are equal, but the outcomes are not, then what else is shaping the result? And I've been sitting with this question for a while. Before taking the law course on racial inequality in law, I thought I understood this part of American history. Slavery ended. The Civil War was over. The Constitution was amended. And again, America moved forward. Again, not wrong. It was just incomplete for me. Because the deeper I went into the material, the more I realized I had been thinking about freedom as an event. And history has shown me that it's a process. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery. The 14th promised equal protection under the law. Then you have the 15th, protected the right of Black men to vote. These amendments fundamentally changed the Constitution, representing hope, representing progress. On paper, America had made one of the greatest promises in its history. But one lesson kept challenging me. Changing the law and changing the system are not always the same thing. One sentence in the 13th Amendment stopped me. It says slavery and involuntary servitude are prohibited, except as punishment for a crime. I have read those words before, written those words before, but I had never really asked why they mattered. Then I learned about what happened after emancipation. There were many Southern states that passed laws. Some restricted movement. Others restricted employment. And one of the most common charges was vagrancy. If you couldn't prove you had a job, you could be arrested. You could be fined. And if you couldn't pay that fine, you could be forced into labor. And that wasn't the picture of freedom I had imagined. Then something happened that really surprised me, and I came across 2 words I never heard of before: convict leasing. Have you ever heard of these terms? I hadn't, and it kind of bothered me when I heard about convict leasing because I've spent years reading history. I've traveled to museums across the country and around the world. I've built an entire platform dedicating to helping people learn Black history, yet somehow I never heard of these 2 words. And I remember pausing the documentary Slavery by Another Name and just sitting there. How had I missed this? This convict leasing was a system that emerged after the Civil War, where Black men were arrested, often for minor offenses like vagrancy or breaking labor contracts. And again, you can't pay that fine imposed by the court. States then leased them to private businesses working in coal mines, railroads, steel mills, wherever labor was needed. And the companies paid the state for their labor. And the workers themselves received very little or nothing at all. Many died under brutal conditions. And the more I learned, the more one question stayed with me. Why wasn't this part of the history I learned? You see, we spend so many years studying slavery, continuing to teach slavery, continuing to bring out documentaries on slavery, movies. Then many of us jump straight into Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, the bus boycott, the March on Washington. But what happened during those decades in between, Convict Leasing helped me understand that chapter. Not that it explains everything, because really to me, it revealed something bigger. And it was the moment that really changed my thinking. Just no longer looking at history as a series of isolated events. I started looking at history, and I'm starting to view history through a series of evolving systems. And this shift has completely changed the questions, I begin to kind of ponder and ask myself, instead of what is happening next, I'm starting to ask and I'm starting to think about what system is producing this outcome. Because once I started looking through this lens and this question, what system is producing this outcome, I kept seeing the same patterns. I'm starting to recognize patterns, and it's not just in the criminal justice system, but in housing, education, healthcare, voting, wealth. Different institutions within different time periods, different policies, yet I found myself keep asking the same question over and over again. What system is shaping this outcome? And it's one of the biggest lessons I've taken away from the law course is that freedom is more than just removing chains. It is also about removing barriers. A law can change overnight, but the systems often take generations to change. And this is why studying history matters. It's really going beyond just some historical facts or memorizing dates or knowing what marches had occurred. But it's really beginning to look at and teach us the patterns we should be recognizing, and also teaching us to ask better questions. And sometimes in asking those better questions, it begins to reveal chapters of history we never knew existed. So I'll leave you with this. If freedom was guaranteed by law, but opportunity continued to be shaped by the systems that followed, then maybe the real question isn't whether slavery ended. We know it did. Maybe the better question is, when one system disappears, what replaces it? Let me say that one more again. When one system disappears, what replaces it? And I really just don't think this is a historical question. I think it's one we should continue asking today, as history is not just backward looking. It's the present and also forward looking as well. So if today's episode challenged the way you think about history, or just another viewpoint of history, of going just a level deeper beyond the event, the milestones, the achievement, and really looking at history as a series, as a process of events. It's a process of events that with repeating patterns. And again, I invite you to take the historical awareness profile at historiansconnect.scoreapp.com or by directly clicking the link in the show description. Discover where you are at on your own historical journey, receive your personalized profile, and download your free copy of Malcolm X, through the Crown Framework reflection cards. In the next episode, I'm going to go a little bit deeper to explore, a debate that and a question that kind of arose in the law class that I took. Is inequality the result of merit? Or are we asking the wrong question? So until the next episode, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep seeking history beyond the headlines.